So now to explain the structure of reality. Because God is love, and reality is love, the genius behind the design of what God is doing is that God recognizes that everything that I've been explaining in this model is the absolute structure of what God is. God isn't just the singularity. God is the singularity plus all the entire surrounding debris field, all the fragments as well. When God is infinitely conscious, God recognizes that, and it embraces all of itself, such that God recognizes that there are, we might say, lost souls. There are beings and creatures and people in the universe who are very, very far away from the center, very disconnected from God. But God understands that because it's infinitely conscious, and God realizes that it can't be otherwise. So, because God is infinitely conscious, it recognizes that there's nothing that can be done about this other than to accept it and to embrace it and to love it. So God doesn't sit up high in the clouds and just project its love on the world. See, no, God's love is so powerful that not only is God able to sit up in the clouds, so to speak, but simultaneously God is fully conscious that it is all those pieces of itself that are separated from itself, that are lost from itself, that are seeking to reconnect and to become whole again. And so the genius of God's design is that what's going to happen as the universe unfolds, and this is the purpose behind time, is that as time clicks away, what happens is that all of these pieces are slowly, as though pulled by a gravitational force, getting attracted, orbiting closer and closer, spiraling inwards towards the singularity, just like the way that stars do within the Milky Way galaxy. If you look at a spiral galaxy from up top, you see that the stars are all orbiting a supermassive black hole at the very center, and eventually all of them will get sucked into this supermassive black hole, and then eventually that black hole will explode under the pressure of all the stars that get sucked into it, and then the whole process will begin again. This is exactly what's happening with reality as a whole. Every piece is gradually being pulled towards the center until eventually it will get drawn to the singularity, and it will recollect itself. All the pieces will recollect itself and assemble themselves into God. And through this process, every living being is able to participate in what God is, and God is able to awaken to itself, and God is able to go through this cycle of separation from itself, forgetting itself, and then recollecting, remembering itself, and becoming complete. So now, this gravitational force that I've been speaking of, this is actually desire. So here's the real profound insight for you. And this is actually quite practical. Every desire that you've ever had in your life, and every desire that every living being has ever had in its life, has been the desire for a fragment of consciousness to ultimately seek completion. You see, notice that your desires are finite. You desire that person, but not this person. You desire this situation, but not that situation. You desire the temperature to be hotter, but not colder, or vice versa, or whatever. You desire this car, but not that car. You see, your desire is finite. The reason your desire is finite is because you are finite. You're a finite piece of consciousness. And a finite piece of consciousness can't help itself but to have a finite desire. Because to have infinite, unlimited desire, indiscriminate desire, that would be infinite love. And infinite love can only exist at the singularity. So you're not there. But in God's infinite design, infinite wisdom, what it puts inside of you is desire, specifically the desires you need to inch you closer and closer and closer towards the singularity. But now here's the interesting wrinkle, is that because God is consciousness, God can't push you into the singularity. You have to willingly enter the singularity of your own free choice. from becoming more conscious, which is why you can't take a very needy person, a very selfish person, a criminal person, an evil person. You can't take a devil and force him to start to love everybody. Why not? What stops a criminal from being very loving? Fear. Fear of what? Fear of losing his identity, his attachments, and ultimately self-annihilation. Because to move towards the singularity, to become more loving from any point on this field, to move towards the singularity is a loss of a sense of self, relatively speaking. So for a criminal to become more loving, he would have to lose some part of himself, the criminal part, that part that's afraid, that part that's attached, that part that's hateful and malicious and we might call evil, the dark part of himself. Now, where did a criminal get this dark part of himself? Well, probably because his parents were also criminals, and the way that they raised him wasn't very good. He probably grew up somewhere in poverty, in a ghetto somewhere. And then, he was probably beaten and abused by his mother and his father, and they probably did drugs around him. And so he got this bad influence. He probably grew up in a poor neighborhood where there just wasn't opportunity. He couldn't get a job. He couldn't go to decent school. When he went to school, people picked on him. His teachers didn't care about him. And so he's grown up. This is the classic criminal stereotype. This sort of person has grown up never experiencing love. So this person is literally disconnected from the possibility of true love. And yet at the same time, the only thing that this being wants, this criminal wants, is love, you see. So the being is in sort of a bind. It was born, and its true nature is love, because the nature of all of reality is love. Deep down somewhere, it knows that, and it's seeking that love, but it doesn't know how. It's not conscious enough to understand how to find this love. And the methods that it's tried, like it's tried to get love from its mother, from its father, from its teachers, from its friends at school and all this, and all of those methods, what if they all fail? If they all succeed, it's fine, it's easy. But what if they all fail? Well, then this being is left completely crippled and dysfunctional. And now it lashes out at the world to try to get the love. Now it goes, steals money. Now it goes, beats people up. Now it goes, sells drugs. Now it goes, does heroin. Now it goes, gets in a fist fight or something like that. All of that is it acting out, trying to receive love that it doesn't know how to otherwise get, that its environment is not allowing it to get. Like if a child is born in a war zone, the child doesn't have the opportunity to go to a university and to become some, educated professional. The child needs to now resort to terrorism to survive in that war zone. And so that's how the child gets its love, is by becoming a terrorist. And you see, so to transform this sort of being who's never experienced love into a saintly person, this is the hardest thing in the world. How does God transform such a person into a saint? Gradually, through desire, through a hierarchy of desires that are higher and higher and higher and higher in quality and more selfless. But you see, as much as God would love to just appear to you and to just shower you with love, the problem is that most people aren't ready to tolerate that degree of love. You see, God's love is so selfless, so indiscriminate, so formless, that if you were to experience it, you would literally lose yourself. You would lose your mind, and you would ultimately lose your physical body. So sometimes people wonder, like, well, Leo, if God is real and love is real, how come I can't see it? Where is the love? I don't see any love right now. I don't see any God right now. That's because you are somewhere on the periphery of this field, and what maintains your place on that periphery is precisely your inability to handle love. It's your fear of love. So this axis right here of this radial model that we're creating, The center of it is pure infinite love, and the very edge of it is complete, utter terror and horror and fear, the stuff of nightmares. And most humans are somewhere in the middle. You're somewhere in the middle. So right now, you are not able to access the love of God because you're too afraid, and you're too attached, and you're too selfish, and you'd have to give all that up.